Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon and our continued coverage of Great Western Trail. Today I want to go over how to play this second edition solo. So the second edition comes with an official solo variant, but it is based on the solo variant that was created by several BGG users back for the first edition. Was very popular, worked very well. And so the designers went to these individuals, asked them to work with them, and they helped flesh it out into an official solo variant. So for those of you who just may not be familiar with the fact that you can play this solo, I'm going to cover how to play this game solo, basically how to run the AI, which is, his name is Sam, for this game. I'm not going to go over the rules for playing Great Western Trail. That would be an entire video in and of itself. If you are interested in me creating a video on how to play Great Western Trail, please let me know in the comment section below. But there are plenty of videos already out there, not necessarily using the second edition, but for the most part, anything that you find talking about how to play that uses the first edition will get you going. So there's lots of videos out there already, so I'm not going to redo the work unless somebody is specifically looking for that video. But just a general overview, in case you are completely unfamiliar with Great Western Trail, you are attempting to take your little cowboy meeple and move them along the trail. Now, I have this game is set up kind of halfway or a good chunk of the way through a game. That way, it's easier for me to show off things. So this is not what the board would look like at the beginning, but you're moving your cowboy meeple along the trail, and your movement is based on a set standard at the beginning of the game, but then you can unlock additional movements, things like that. And every location, every cardboard chit that you see, you have to stop on, counts as one movement point. Now, if there's nothing there, you just completely skip over it. So to go from here all the way to here is just one movement. But to go from here, 1, 2, 3, it would take 3 movement if you were at the start space over here. So basically, you're working your way up the trail. You can see that each of these locations has actions that you can take. That's going to help you hire more workers, which are going to be kind of located over here, gain more cattle, which are located over down here, build more buildings, which you can see go out on your certain color. And if it's a building of your color, you can use it. If it's not, you have to take just one of these simple actions from your board, and you're probably going to have to pay the other person. And eventually you make your way up to Kansas City, and you're going to make your way up to Kansas City several times over the course of the game, in which at that time you're going to turn in your card of hands that you currently have. Hopefully it's going to be full of a variety of cows, because duplicates are not going to be counted, and it's going to give you a nice high number based on their breed value, which you can see the heifers here have a breed value of 5, 4, 3s. Your starting hand is going to start with a bunch of 2s and 1s. So you can see this is a deck builder in a way, but it is much more of a hand management game as opposed to a deck builder. But you are adding cards, you're building up your deck. There's ways to cull out the worst cards from your deck, things like that. But basically, you're trying to get up to Kansas City, turn in your cows, which you basically just put into a discard pile, and deliver to one of those cities up at the top. The better the city, the higher the breed value you need, but the more points you're going to get at the end. You also have this train mechanic where you can move your train along, basically stopping at these train stations. Also, the further along you are, the cheaper it is to deliver to those better cities. So there's a lot of mechanics in Great Western Trail. And it is, a pure Euro game. There is no dice in this game. It's, there's no hidden information other than, what's physically the card of cattle the cattle cards that you have in your hand, I guess, is technically hidden, and what's in your draw pile, you don't quite know. But other than that, it's a pure Euro. Lots of mechanics, lots going on. So with that being said, let's talk about the solo AI. So the solo AI is going to basically be moving along, taking actions, and this is an opponent that is actually going to score points. So you have to keep up with possibly like take a cattle from them so they can't take a cattle, or take an objective card from them so they can't take a specific, maybe even hire a worker so they can't hire a specific worker. So there's a little bit of blocking that you can do, but other than that, you kind of need to figure out where, keep track of where they are. In this game, all of the points are counted up in the end. There's no score track during the game, so it's quite hard to keep up with where you are in comparison to other people, but you just kind of have to have a general feel for how well they're doing based on seeing the cattle and the objective cards they've taken. So they're going to take physical movements on the board, they're going to take physical actions, but as with a lot of AI, there's a few things they're not going to do. So they are not going to collect money at any point in time. You collect money for the cattle you turn in. You can turn in cattle while you're on the trail. You then have to spend money to build buildings, to move your train sometimes, to stop at train stations, things like that. So money, currency, is a big thing for you, but the AI does not use it anytime that they would need to acquire a cattle or move their train, or they don't have to spend money, but they also don't get any money for turning in their cattle. They don't keep up with a hand of cattle cards like you do as well. So keeping that in mind, for the most part, they also don't have a player board like this, which means they're not uncovering new actions by placing. These are the discs that you place into the train stations and into the city locations. So as you place those out and claim those cities and those train stations, you unlock new actions and better actions on your board, similar to like how Scythe works. So they don't have a player board, and so there's certain bonuses that come with the player board and those actions that they're also not going to get at the end of the game. But otherwise, they're going to score. They're going to score for their cattle. They're going to score for their objective cards. They're going to score for possibly reaching a certain number of employees. Basically everything that you score for, they are going to score for at the end of the game. They just really don't work in money. All right. So all that being said, setup is pretty straightforward. You're going to need the colored discs of a certain color that's not yours, and you're going to need their stack of buildings. They tell you in the instruction manual to lay them out kind of like I did here for mine. That's not necessary. I would just stack them up from 1B down to 12B. You are going to use the B side every time. As a player, you can have a mixture of A and B sides, and if you're playing multiplayer, you just need to make sure that everybody's using the same A and B sides. You're also going to give them a starting objective card, which would look like this. It's not going to have anything up in this upper corner, but you're going to give all of their cards, all their objective cards that they claim and all their cattle, you're going to put it face down. So this, in this instance of the game, is their current objectives and cattle that they have acquired. They're basically just going to acquire them, and then at the end of the game, you count them up. But that way, you can't just sit there and look through their pile and know what they have gotten. The next thing is their actual player board here, which just is for the employees. And to start the game, it's going to look like this. But what you're going to do during setup is you're going to take a single token from the 2 bag here, and the 2 bag, there's 3 bags. The 2 bag has only employees in it, so you don't have to risk of drawing them an outlaw or a hazard or anything like that. So you're going to draw 1 2 tile out of the bag, and you're going to add it to their board. That means that they are now specialized in the laborer, the architect, essentially, the person that does buildings. That's their specialty. For the most part, to be successful in this game, you kind of have to specialize in something. Are you going to specialize in getting your train? This is the conductor. The more conductors you have, the further you can move your train. That's the only way you're going to get down here to these higher victory point train stations. Or the cowboy. The more cowboys you have, the cheaper the cattle are, the easier it is to get the higher numbered cattle and get more cattle. So if you are wanting to focus on scoring points on cattle, you're going to want to have more cowboys. In this instance, by random selection, we drew the laborer here, the architect, so their focus is going to be on placing buildings out. You can see the buildings come with victory points as well. So at any point in time, a lot of their cards are going to say, take your action based on what your specialization is. And the AI specialization is always going to be who they have the most workers of. Now, let's put this board back the way it was. Now let's just say, for example, ignoring all the purple over here, because there's a lot of purple on the board right now, a lot of laborers to hire. This is your hiring pool. You can only hire from what's right here, and you're paying the cost that is adjacent to it. Now, say for example, there are certain actions where the AI is going to be told to hire the cheapest worker, or hire a specialized worker. If not available, hire the cheapest worker. We'll say, because it's random what workers come out, there's either not a lot of purple, or they just perchance end up hiring 2 cowboys. And so now all of a sudden the AI's board looks like this. Their specialization is now going to change. You will move this token. That token is simply there to help remind you of what their specialization is, because if there is ever a tie, you don't move the specialization. It's only when they overtake that you move the specialization. So just keep in mind that wherever this token is does make a difference. It's usually going to be wherever they have the most workers. Tie, it stays, but as soon as they claim a worker that pushes them to a higher number, you're going to move their specialization. A lot of times it doesn't move in the game. I've had games where they've literally like filled up this row and had no one else. So it just happens that way. It helps create the randomness of the AI, which helps make this a really good solo system. So, all right. The last thing I want to talk about is, so we've talked about specialization. We've talked about how they're going to score and that they don't work in money. The last thing I want to talk about is movement. So you are going to be told to move the AI. Every time you draw a card, the AI is going to move. Just like you, as a person, every turn is going to have to move your token as well. You can't just stay on the same spot. So when you are moving the AI, your first tiebreaker is the shortest distance. So say they're on this space. Say they started here, they moved 1, they stopped here. Now they're at a location where they have a branch in the road. You can see the arrows here, this one pointing down, this one pointing left, this one is pointing in, so we can't go backwards. You can never go backwards on the trail, and you cannot stay put. His next endpoint, his next intersection is this building here. So to get from this building here, he would either go 1, 2, 3, crossing 2 hazards, or he can go 1, 2, crossing through my building. So he's going to take the shorter path. If he were only instructed to move 1, he would still take the shorter path and just stop on my building. The tiebreaker, if, for example, let's just say his situation looked like this, where it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So he's still starting at this building. It's going to take him 3 points of movement to get to this point, no matter which branch he takes. His tiebreaker then is which is cheapest. Now, again, he doesn't work in currency, but you need to understand that these black and green hands represent having to pay money. So anytime you cross through a hazard or cross past an outlaw on the trail that has those hands, you're going to have to pay. In a solo game, it's 2 coins for both. In the multiplayer games, the green and the black, those numbers change, but in a solo game, it's all 2. So you don't need to worry about whether it's a black or green hand. So in this instance, it's the same number. So the shortest path, they're tied. The tiebreaker would be cheapest. So if he goes this way, even though he doesn't work in currency, he still technically would have had to have paid 4 coins to get to here. Going this way, he only has to pay 2 because this is his building. He doesn't have to pay to pass through it. You have to pay to pass or stop on. So even if he were to go this way and stop here, he still would have to pay me 2 coins. But that's cheaper than 4 coins. Now, let's backtrack just a second, and let's say this is now his scenario. So both ways are the same. It's going to take 2 points of movement to get to here. It also is going to cost him 2 coins, either path, to get to here. So the third tiebreaker is which way is not going to give you, as the other player, money. He doesn't want to give you money. If you have to pay to cross an hazard or cross an outlaw, your money just goes back to the bank. If, however, you pass through someone else's building, you have to pay that person. So they're going to say, oh, well, I'd rather not give the other player $2. I'm just trying to get over here to use this building, so he's going to take this path now. So the third tiebreaker is whatever gives you, as the opponent, the least amount of money. If you come across a situation where all of those instances are tied, then you, as the controlling player, get to choose which direction they go. So that is how you decide movement for the solo AI. Now, with all that out of the way, the solo AI has a deck of cards. They are turned sideways. They have the similar back as most of the other cards, but you can see they're horizontal as opposed to vertical. So that's how you tell them apart. They're also going to look like this, and they're going to be numbered 1 to 15. I'm going to go through them in order, but during a game, they're going to be randomized. They're going to be shuffled. If you are wanting to play an easier game, say your first game against the solo AI, they recommend you take out these last 3. So 13, 14, and 15 give the AI the best actions in the game. So if you remove these from the game, the AI becomes less effective, making them a little easier to play against. But we're going to go through all of them now, one at a time. Now, I don't expect you to remember from this video what all the iconography means, but the game comes with its own separate manual for Lonely Are the Brave. This is the solo variant, and it describes in detail what each symbol means, and it gives you specifics like card 7, card 8, card 9. So all the cards are discussed in this pamphlet. There is also, I recommend, the appendix, which covers every building, both neutral buildings, private buildings, A and B side, and then your auxiliary actions, which are these actions on your player board. These 2 pamphlets are going to be necessary to keep handy when you are playing for the first couple times, more than likely. So keep those handy, but basically we're just going to briefly go through these. Once you kind of know what to do when you flip over each one of these cards, the AI turns go quite quickly. You simply look at the card, you move them, you take their actions, and then you come back to you. So the first one here, this is moving 1, and then you're going to hire the cheapest worker on the board. So you can see that the colors of the laborer, the conductor, and the cowboy are behind the head. So this symbol means take, green arrow is take, the cheapest laborer. So if we were to look over here at this current board, we would see, okay, well, there's some 6s here, there's a 6 here, those are the 3 cheapest. Then you would look to, if there's a tiebreaker, what is their specialization? All right, they specialized in laborers, so they would take this one, okay? And they'd place it over here on their board. Now let's just say, for example, there is no laborer available, but there is this. So then what they're going to do is you're going to look to see which do they have the least of. In this instance, there's another tie. So then they look to whatever's highest on the board. They would take this one. So all those nuances are described in the manual, but just know that this card, you're going to hire the cheapest laborer. Whereas the number 2 card is very similar, except you are going to look to hire the specialized person, no matter how much it costs. So it doesn't have to be the cheapest. In this instance, you wouldn't care that this person costs 10. You would simply take them and give them their specialist. If there are no laborers on the board or whoever they're specialized in, you would again look to the cheapest, look to the highest. All right. In this instance, you're going to move their player 2, and then you're going to look to purchase cattle. So all of this really just means you're going to purchase the most amount of VP that is possible for 8 coins. So that can be a mouthful, but let's look down here at our cattle market. So the cattle market stays pretty stagnant. Certain times of the game, you're going to add more cards, but what you're going to do is you're going to look at how many cowboys they have first. All right, right now they have 2 cowboys. So this is not an option, these are not an option, and this one's not an option. Also, if you look here, they have 2 cowboys, but to get a single 5 with 2 cowboys, they'd have to spend 12 coins. That's out of their budget. Their budget's only 8. So all of this now, or see, here is 1 cowboy for 12 coins. So all of this is out of their budget. They either don't have enough cowboys or they can't afford it. So we come back over to here, and then you're going to say, all right, well, they've got one cowboy, they're getting a single 3, which is one of these two, or 2 cowboys, they pay less. Well, they don't care about the money, so they're going to look to choose one of these, and they're always going to choose this little shield symbol here with the greater than sign, the one with the most victory points, so they would choose the Corriente. Now, say, for example, they have 3 cowboys. You would continue to look over here, and you would say, okay, well, I could get 2 3s, or I could get 1 4. Both of these, I have the right number. They have the right number of cowboys for. Both of them are under their budget, which is 8. They don't have enough cowboys or enough money for the purples. So then you look here and you say, okay, well, they could get a 5 here, and they could get technically a 3 and a 2 here. So that is a tie. In this instance, they're going to choose whichever one has the higher breed value. But let's just say this card was not there. In this instance, their 1 4 would get them 4 victory points, or their 2 blue and reds would get them 5. In this instance, they're going to take these 2. They're going to get they're gaining the highest amount of victory points for $8. In this instance, they're only spending 5, but again, they don't care about the money. But that's what this symbol all means. It means purchasing cattle no more than $8. You can't buy more than they have cowboys for. So it seems complicated in the rule book when you're reading it, but when you're sitting here and you're making the decision for them, it's very simple. How many cowboys do they have? And what's less than $8? And you kind of go through and you say, all right, these are not available. So basically the only way they're ever going to get a purple is if they have 4 cowboys. In that instance, they're probably going to go after the purple. All right. This next card, they're going to move to, and then they're going to put down a building. All right. So putting down a building, you're going to come over here to their stack, and you're going to look and see how many workers they have. So in this instance, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 workers. So they want to build a building where they utilize their most amount of workers. So we're going to skip over these. Some of them are already out, and we're going to get here. This building takes 5 workers to build. This next one takes 6, so this one's not available. They could build these 2, but they're going to make use of the most amount of workers possible. So they're going to go for this one over the 4. Because remember, they don't use the actions on these. They're simply just trying to get the most amount of VP out. So in this instance, they would choose this building to build. Now, here is my person for this instance. When deciding where to put this building, the AI is going to choose the spot on the path that I, as the opponent, am going to hit next. So I'm here. There's a fork in the road. I could go up this way, or I could go up this way. So these technically are the 2 options that the AI could choose, but the AI is never going to choose one of these that have these at-risk actions. These are bonus actions that are added to the bottom of a location, or added to a location, because you'll notice they are always at the end of the hazard sections. So if you build a building here and you want to use it, you're saying, all right, I'm risking having to travel through the hazardous area to get to this building, so they're giving you an extra bonus to build there. The AI never builds there. They only ever build on the safe path. So you can see that there's very few places where you have to make that decision, like here, 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 and here or here. Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. It's here, here, there's a decision, here, there's a decision, there's a decision. So in this instance, they would choose this location. It's the first open space that I would hit. Now I could choose to go around it, but that's where they're going to choose. Now let's just say, for example, that these buildings are already out, and I'm going to put this one out already as well. And I'm also going to go like this. So they now have just 4 laborers. And this is what their set of buildings looks like. I'm also going to say, now, technically, if this was what their buildings looked like, they can build this building, they cannot build this building. So they're going to build this one. It's not utilizing all of their laborers, but it's one they can build. So they would build that and put it down. Now let's say they come around again, they get that card again, and this is what their buildings look like. I'm going to put those away just for the sake of showing you an example. So you can see now that they don't have 5 laborers. They only have 4. So what they're going to do then is they're going to say, all right, what building can I upgrade? Well, they can upgrade just about all of these. They could easily upgrade this one or this one or all of them. When you upgrade a building, you only have to take the difference. So to go from a 4 to an 8, you only need 4 laborers. So in this instance, they have 4, and they have a building out here with 4. They would take this tile and replace this one. This one goes away. It's no longer available in the game. This is how you as a human player also are able to build buildings that need like 8 or 9 laborers, because you can see the most you can ever have is 6. So hopefully that all made sense. The nuances of it, again, are in the rule book, but that's the long and short of it. And usually it's pretty straightforward. You count how many laborers they have, what's the maximum, what's the best building you can build with that many laborers. You just work your way back through the stack, and you put it where I, as the opponent, am going to intersect it next. All right. This one's pretty straightforward. You're going to move them 1 space, and then you're going to move their train 1 space along the track for each conductor they have. So in this instance, they would move 2. Now, as they move along the track here, every single turnout, which are these little bump outs in the bottom to get to the train stations, they are going to take. They're going to take them, and all you're going to do is simply take a disc and put it there to say they have claimed that train station. Everybody can have a disc at a train station, but if they are the first ones to get there and there is still a station master tile here, they remove it from the game. They don't put a worker there, which is what you have to do, so a little unfair in my opinion. They simply remove that from the game. So you can see example here, I did not go there, I bypassed that one. They went there, they claimed it, and they removed the station master tile. For the most part, your train only goes one direction, so once you've passed a train station, it's pretty hard to make it back to it. All right. This one is the exact same, but you see they get to move 2 instead of 1. And then this one here, they're going to move 1, and then they're going to claim an objective card. They score the victory points on an objective card whether they meet those objectives or not. So for them, they're simply going to take the far right objective card, place it face down in their stack, you push everything over, and you draw a new one. So ideally, if you look out and you say, say it was like this, and this is going to give them 5, and this is going to give them 3 victory points, you're going to maybe want to try and claim that objective card before they do, so you're not giving them 2 extra points. But that means you have to complete those objectives. So again, that's how you can kind of block the AI. All right, just a few more here that are new symbols, and they're all very straightforward. This is move 1, and you're going to pick up an outlaw from the board, and they're always just going to take whichever one's furthest on the higher number here. So you can see all these are numbered. They would technically, and all of them come with a bounty that, the more there are out there, the more expensive. So in this instance, they would take this guy off the board. Or if there was a guy all the way out here at 7, they would take that one. They simply put them over there. They actually don't, you don't get anything for outlaws. They help you complete objectives, but for them, they don't really use them. All right. This one is the same, move 1, but remove a hazard. So these are all the hazards. In this instance, it's all a tie, but normally they look to see which hazard area has the most. So in this case, they would go up here, and then they're going to look which hazard gives them the most VP. In this instance, they would take this one. But if this is what the board looked like and all 3 were tied, then they look to see which is the most VP. In that case, it would be this one. They would take that one off the board. If they're all tied, say they were all 2s, you then just get to pick. All right, so these next cards are getting a little more complicated, but we've already covered most of the symbology, so they should be pretty straight. We should be catching on at this point. All right, this one, the movement is going to be based on whichever opposing player has the most buildings out. So you can see those are the player colors: blue, white, yellow, and red. I am playing as red, and in this instance, I have 2 buildings out, so he would get to move 2 spaces. If I had 3 buildings out, he would get to move 3. The maximum, though, is 5. So if I had 6 buildings out, the most he gets to move is 5. Now, this is where knowing what their specialization is in matters, because this particular card, if they are specialized in cowboys, they're going to take that claim cattle action. If they are specialized in laborers or conductors, they do nothing. So in this case, bonus for us. This is the same card, essentially, but you can see that here they're looking for specialization in laborers, and they're going to build a building. And this last one, again, is exactly the same. They are going to move their train if they're specialized in conductors. Otherwise, they do nothing. And then these are the last 3. These are the ones that you can remove from the game if you want to make it easier. And these, again, are exactly the same, except they're going to get to move a certain number based on how many employees they have in their specialization. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4. You do count their starting employee. So in this case, they would get to move 4. Say they had 6 laborers, the maximum they get to move is 5. And then again, it's the same instance here, except they're not doing nothing. So here, if they're specialized in cowboys, they take that cattle action. They're also going to add 2 cattle to the market, which is a bonus for you and for them. You're going to do that first before they choose. And if they're the other specialization, they're simply going to take a 3 fur, so that's like one of these 2, with the highest VP. Or if they're specialized in laboring, they're either going to build or they're going to remove, I believe. I have to look back and remember what this card exactly says. I believe they remove a laborer to build a building. I'll have to look at that. And then this one, and again, it's described in the rule book. My apologies. I'm just not as familiar with that symbol. And then this last one here is if they are specialized in conductors, they're going to move directly to the next train station. So say they are here, they would automatically jump to here and then claim it. If they are the other specializations, they simply move their train forward 1. Okay, so that is all the cards for the solo AI deck. Just a quick aside as to my opinion of these cards. I think they work really well because there's just a lot of basic actions in here, which is what you generally are taking, and then there's some really nice actions for them, which occasionally you as a human player can have a really good turn, do a lot of things, and feel like you had a really successful turn. I really love the specialization where they're going to do specific actions based on those specializations. The only thing that I don't like about this is that you're simply going to shuffle this up and you're going to go through it each time. And you're going to go through it at least twice a game, probably into the third. So you kind of know how many cattle they're going to claim at the end. You're going to know how many buildings they're going to build out. The only difference is whether they're specialized. Where this token is what makes the game so random. The only thing I would say that could make this better is if they had one of those cards in it that said, okay, after you have taken the actions on this card, shuffle this deck. Shuffle the discard pile back into the deck and reset it, so that you're not going just straight through 15 cards every time, shuffling them up and going through the same 15 cards. That creates a much more randomness to it, where that card could come up at the beginning, it could come up as the third card, or it could come up as the last card, but you never quite know what they're going to do. I feel like that's something that you can easily add to an AI deck that really helps with the randomness. So that's just my opinion on the. Otherwise, I feel like the AI works really well. One last thing, just so you are aware of how everything works in the game. when the AI makes it up to Kansas City, they are going to place out the bottom row, no matter what's here. So they're going to place out, you know, this guy. They're going to place out this guy. And they're going to place out this girl. So no matter what's here, for the 1, 2, and 3 columns, they're going to place out the bottom ones. You just shift everything down, and they refill. If it's you who's choosing, say you're up here, and this is what it looked like, you're going to push this guy down, and you always fill in the top. Once the AI is up here, they skip step 4 of Kansas City, and when they get to step 5, they simply start in Bloomington, and then they will place a token at every location, making their way up to New York. So it's your goal to try and get up to Kansas City enough times so that they don't necessarily get to New York and then just keep plugging away at New York, which would give them a massive amount of victory points, and they would probably win the game. All right. After that, they simply just reset back here. Again, remember, they don't take any money or anything like that. So that pretty much covers everything you should need to know on how to play Great Western Trail solo. Again, there is a lot of mechanics to this game, a lot of nuances, a lot of specifics. If you can't remember everything I went over, that's what the rule book is for and the appendices, so keep those handy. But this is a great solo variant to a great heavy Euro game, so if that's what you're looking for. Also the theme, there's not a ton of Western cowboy type themes out there, so if this theme is something you're interested in, or if you're looking for something that is a heavy Euro, no luck involved, or something that has, you know, if you're really into games that have several paths to winning, where you can take, you know, lots of different routes and you can specialize in something completely different from the AI or the opposing players, this would be an excellent game for you. If you're one who does not like a lot of rules, does not like a lot of iconography, then this maybe is not for you. This is probably too heavy for you. It does have the deck building mechanic, which a lot of people list this game in their top deck builders, which it's a great game and it has a deck building mechanic, but I would not, as far as deck builders are concerned, say that it blows me out of the water like other deck builders, like, you know, Marvel Legendary, Thunderstone Quest, ones like that are classic deck builders. It's not even up there with like Lost Ruins of Arnak or Dune Imperium, in my opinion, because it's like a hybrid of, you know, heavy Euro, point-to-point movement, ownership, hand management, and deck building. So it's like a super hybrid, but the deck building is not a huge part of the game. It is just a mechanic that you do need to pay attention to and is part, but it's not all the game. So that's just my opinion. But other than that, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel. And let me know in the comment section, are you interested in seeing a full solo playthrough of this? Are you interested in a how to play video of Great Western Trail in general? So how to play as a human, not as the AI. Please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. I'm always open to suggestions of the videos I post on the channel. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.